All right, class, what we have to do first is we have to divide all of the backs of the paintings into 1-inch strips. You see the mark at the top, and there's also a mark at the bottom. This numbering is gluing them down in order, but on the individual painting we have to number them from the reverse order. Odds on one side and evens on the other side. And I'm going to show you all this. So here's your finished completed painting. This student put it away when the paint was wet. It got folded when they closed the door. When you open it up, it tears. That's why it's important to make sure that this painting is completely dry, or to make sure it goes all the way in and lays flat inside your drawer. But we're going to be able to use this as an example. So when you flip it over, you want to take your ruler and you want to make sure this ruler doesn't start at the wood. It starts right here at this longest line. And we want to measure all the way till we get to that folded part. So we want to go back in and fold our painting so we know exactly where that center line is. And you can see this painting went across the center line also. So when I start the measuring, I want to start with the ruler at the top of the paper. You have to measure at the top of the paper and make a mark at every inch. Now all the marks that I make are on the back of the paper, and I'm going all the way across. The longest line behind the number is the inch line. So all the way across the paper, the longest mark behind the inch line. And I'm going to stop right there where I see my fold. I'm going to make that last. Instead of marking at 9 inches, I'm going to make my last mark right there at that fold. So then I'm going to move my ruler down to the bottom of the paper, making sure that I don't start with the edge of the ruler, but I start with that 1-inch line. Make sure my ruler goes along the bottom of the paper. That way I know it's straight and I'm starting at the 1-inch mark. If you don't measure at the bottom of the paper and at the top of the paper, making these marks just like I'm doing and go all the way across the paper, if you don't do that, when you go to make these lines for these 1-inch strips, and I've lined up this mark right here at the edge of the paper and this mark at the top, that line is 1 inch wide all the way down. If you don't do that, if you think you're going to be able to just draw straight lines down the paper with the ruler, it won't happen. They'll be 1 inch wide all the way across here, and they'll be varying widths all the way down here unless you make these marks all the way across. Once you've done that, the back of your paper is going to look like this. You're going to have all 1-inch lines all the way across. The 1-inch lines stop right here at this crease. They're numbered odd and even. Odd going this way, odd going this way. So it starts off, the number sequence should be 17, 15, 13, 11, 9. And I also have it on the board. We also have the handout. So make sure that your numbering is going from the left to the right in this sequence of numbers. They're odd numbers, and then starting at the high end, even numbers going. If it's not numbered this way, when you go to cut it apart, which is the next step, you take the scissors and start cutting each one of these off in strips. I've got one that I've started already over here. We're going to do 4 strips at a time, because that way the glue doesn't have a chance to dry, and it allows for a better coverage of glue. So once you have cut all 4 strips out, I've already cut 2 strips from the red one, or the cool side, or the warm side, and 2 strips from the warm side. But if I glue them down, I don't know what parts they are or where they go. So I put my strips off to the side. I've cut off my 4 strips that are going to go next to one another. Now it's time for glue. And I put these on. 5 is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be 5 right here. This is going to be 6 right here. 7 is going to be right here. And 8 is going to be right here. But see, you don't know those numbers because you flip them over and you can't see. That's why it's important to use this numbering sequence that's here and make sure it's odds and evens going all the way across the back of the paper. Once you do that, and now we're starting, you get them all lined up in the order that you need to put them down on. We're going to put about 4 inches, that's about the width of your hand. You're going to be about 4 inches of glue. So you open up the glue. Don't use the scissors or anything to make a hole bigger in the glue. If it's not pouring out right, bring it to me and I'll fix it for you. But you spread the glue out. That's about 4 inches. Okay? Now the next thing is you're going to use your finger, and I'm going to spread that glue out to about 4 inches. Everything is nice, a nice thin coat of glue, and everything goes all the way to the edge. Now you got to remember that this glue has got moisture in it, and the moisture is now all on my hand. So if I rub my hands together, I can get them to where they're clean and not sticky. This one's a little bit too much glue. I keep rubbing, and you can see the little crumbs come off of my hand. So you're going to get some glue on you. So you do that. Now your hands are dry, and they're free of glue. And the glue is water soluble, so everything washes off. But we want to try to keep the little pieces of glue from getting on the painting. So I'm starting off with number 5. I'm going to place number 5 right next. Now these strips can't overlap the last strip. You can have a little bit of space in between, because that's where the fold is going to be once it's dry. So following 5 was 6. 6 is from the cool side, and it lines up with the last one that you put on over here. And you want to make sure you see that I'm running my fingers. This should be my driest hand, because I didn't apply any glue with it. I want to make sure that I'm pressing all these edges down so that this paper is completely glued to that other surface. And then you're ready to move on. 6 followed by 7. We want to make sure that they all line up at the top. We want to make sure that we press all of them down so that all the sides are completely touching the glue and are coated down. You got to be careful, because this is a water-based paint. Cleans up with water, and if you get moisture from this onto the paint, you can get a red spot on your finger, and when you touch the yellow or touch white, it could smear or have a little smudge. And then 7 would be followed by 8, and 8 again is from the cool side. We're going to put this on here. We're going to move it around so we get it lined up right at the top. Make sure if there's any discrepancies in the width of the paper, the length of the paper, if you start at the top, each one is going to be glued down next to the one. These are wanting to curl up because they've had a lot of moisture in them. So I'm running my fingers up and down there to make sure that every edge of that is down touching the glue that's on this paper. Because if you don't, what happens is when you do your fold, you'll see some wrinkles starting to appear. So you want to press down, make sure all these are pressed down. Try not to get any wet glue on the other pieces, and then rub your hands together, and that'll get those glue crumbs off of there. So now that I got a little bit of glue left there, that's all right. I'm going to move that aside. I'm going to get my other piece. There's my cool side. There's my warm side. I'm going to cut off 10. I'm going to cut off 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. That'll be my next 4 strips, and then I'm going to glue them down. Then after they're glued down, repeat the process over and over again. Remember, it is vitally, vitally important that that's numbered in this order going across the paper. 17, 15, 13. Once you turn the paper over, make sure it starts from the left side with 17, 15, 13, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, 1, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Make sure it's in that number. We're going to put that number up on the wall so you know from left to right that's how they have to be numbered. On the board, the warm colors palette and the cool color palette has the numbers on them also.